WEFUNK. We funk.
But I guess just all in all, like I said, super, super excited that I'm going to be back at Citi Field at some point in this season. But more important than that, I'm super excited that the Mets are going to be back at Citi Field. And baseball will be back in full spirits for a full season. And I'm super, super excited about that. So I guess for now, we will get to talk about the actual on-the-field product, the team, the Mets, that we will be rooting for. So I guess let's meet the Mets of 2021 and talk about the some of the on-the-field stories. I guess the big on-the-field stories in general. We got Robbie Cano. Didn't you know he was on steroids, of course? Then, of course, replaced by the Francisco Lindor trade. We're hoping for a big Pete Alonso bounce back from the sophomore slump of the Coronaville season last year. We're still waiting to get Thor back here in July to kind of round out that Mets rotation. And as always, will the bullpen blow it all in the end? So I guess those are kind of the big stories I'll kind of run through here real quick. I guess starting, like we said, Cano with his second now steroid bust, suspended for the full season. Like I said, this is nothing but good news in general. First of all, I guess $20 million for Cano due to him in 2021 came off the books. So good news for our shady hedge fund billionaire there. But $20 million for the Cano in 2021 off the books, however, not for 22 and 23. So still owed $45 million over the next two seasons after this. However, you do feel that Cano has seen his last days in Queens. He'll either get bought out or traded, or something will get figured out with those last 2 years in Cano. You would doubt he'd be back with the Mets, and honestly, nothing but an addition by subtraction there. Just getting McNeil back at second and getting Cano just out of the middle of the lineup. You know what I mean? If Cano's on your team, he's a middle of your lineup guy, and he's just not a middle of your lineup kind of player at this point, despite having the middle of the order contract and all that. So really, just in all things considered, nothing but good news getting Cano out of here, especially when replaced by Francisco Lindor, the Paquito Baricua, Mr. Smiley, all his official nicknames, none that I created, so back off. All right. And again, I tried to come up all season long. I gave the, You Gotta Believe cast public a chance to come up with a better nickname than Pete the Polar Bear. And the You Gotta Believe cast public failed us, and now we are stuck with wearing polar bear shirts in July for Pete Alonso for the rest of his career. However, starting to kind of dig the polar bear nickname, to be perfectly honest. However, I digress. We'll get into him in 2 minutes when I talk about Pete Alonso. However, back to Francisco Lindor. And the big blockbuster trade of the offseason for the Mets. And like I mentioned really a couple years ago with Cano, one of the worst trades in franchise history. Whether this is one of the best trades in franchise history remains to be seen. But in all honesty, I mean, we got Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, who I guess I'll get to in a couple minutes as well with the pitching staff. But Lindor and Carrasco for Rosario and Jimenez. Two, in all honesty, liked them both. Two middle infielders. I did like them both. Rosario really never fully materialized. Jimenez, looked great last year as well, but kind of a next man up situation. And, Lindor compared to Jimenez is really no comparison as well. We did throw in, two of our top 10 prospects. So, okay, really for Cleveland, it's a good package. Two ready to go middle infielders and two top 10 prospects. All right, that's a good deal for Cleveland. However, for the Mets, like I said, first, I guess we'll get to him in a couple minutes, but getting Carlos Carrasco on kind of a bargain deal. And then Francisco Lindor, who, no doubt one of the top, 5 to 10 best players in the game, 5-tool player at shortstop, premium position. Really, since playing his, first full season with Cleveland in 2016, the Indians have won 4 division titles. He's played 145 to 160 360 games every year as the mainstay on a division title winner. Like I said, hits with some power, steals with some hits with some power, steals bases, great defense at short. Kind of reminds you a little bit, and I guess not the best name to bring up now, but reminds you a little bit of Beltran. In all honesty, coming from the AL Central at a premium position, 5-tool player, Puerto Rican in New York, and like Carlos Beltran, will get the biggest contract in Mets history if he stays with the team at all, which I guess is the biggest risk factor for Lindor, is that he is on a walk year. So you're gonna and again, I'm recording the episode here of the season preview episode just on what do we got here, the 29th, so a couple of days before the season opener. So will they strike a midnight deal, Jacob deGrom style, and sign him to an extension before the season starts? He says he will not negotiate during the season. So will they come up to a $300 million plus contract, multi-year contract for Lindor before the season? If not, you're going to have to play it out afterwards. And after the season, you got two options. Either he has a great year and the Mets do great, then it's going to cost you, you can add an extra $50 million, add even more money onto the contract, or he's not so hot. He has an adjustment period in New York like everybody else that comes to the Mets, and you still have to give him a huge contract, only now with a lot more skepticism and pressure. Or you let him walk, and then the whole thing was let him go, play on the All-Star team for the next 7 years with the Phillies or Braves. Risk that going down. So, definitely a dangerous scenario to trade for a guy on their wall, a superstar player on their walk here. However, didn't give, and we still got Carlos Carrasco to boot, like I mentioned, but you still like the trade, especially with the new ownership coming in. And Steinbrenner, throw the money. Forget what I said about Steinbrenner. Give him everything it takes, and let's get a goddamn World Series. But no, so you would you feel confident though that the Mets and Francisco Lindor, I feel it's a good fit. Something clicks with this to me. So I'm excited for the prospects here for Francisco Lindor in New York, at least for the 2021 season. I guess, like I mentioned earlier, there is another MVP candidate potential on the team already, and I guess that will definitely be one of the other big stories for the Mets this season if they want to compete and go for the play some serious September baseball and go for an October run. They're going to need a big bounce back from Pete Alonso, and of course last year in Coronaville, a little bit of a sophomore slump. However, a very, very weird, unique season, and basically, if you just look at it from Alonso in 2019, it was just an insane, magical, overachieving. He was the MVP candidate as a rookie out of nowhere. It was really just an insane season. Last year, in the shortened 60-game total chaos, him being the main target in the lineup, he fell off in a big way. But who knows? Would you expect him to come back to the 2019 55 homers? Probably not. Would you expect him to be way better than he was in 2020? Absolutely. With Dominic Smith still on the team. However, you still kind of run the gamut with Alonso, where going into 2021, he could be anything this season, from an MVP candidate to a controversy over first base with Dominic Smith all year, to be perfectly honest. You know what I mean? If he starts off in a huge slump and it's looking like a carryover of 2020, and maybe the juiced balls of 2019 was the aberration and not the rule. So we still have a lot to see from Alonso. We all knew that 2019 was probably not going to be easily repeated right away, and then in Pete Alonso's career, that's going to be one of the best years of Pete Alonso's career if he has a solid 15-year run at this. All right. So, but Pete Alonso had a huge spring. He's been a monster in spring. He is a huge prospect. We expected big things from him. He had a big spring. He's had big moments at Citi Field in the past. I'm expecting a big year from Pete Alonso. Alonso. Definitely, a second potential, top 10 MVP candidate, all-star, all-star caliber player. Absolutely. From Pete Alonso this year, and the Mets honestly really need it if they want to compete. They need that 40 out of 50 home runs in the middle of the lineup. They need that kind of guy in the middle of the lineup, and Pete Alonso, the polar bear, has the potential. So we look for Alonso for now, a third year. We know what to expect from DeGrom, of course. But Thor, now coming off a surgery, of course, should be back by June or July. Should be, trade deadline-ish, very good mid-season addition, trade line addition, ace coming back to the team potentially. But two questions there. A, is he able to hit the ground running in next July, picks it up as the Thor of old? And B, are the Mets there, and, are the Mets there to compete in, potentially August, late July, August with any setbacks where you'd really, really need him and really hope to see him anyway. But I guess when it comes down to the Mets, that really still is, in my book, the backbone of the team. The Mets really still boil down to all of our World Series hopes, all of our hopes and dreams as Mets fans still boil down to DeGrom and Thor back-to-back in October. That's what the Mets are. That's what the Mets, need to be about for them to win the World Series. They need those two aces at the top of the rotation and a couple of long balls from, Alonso and a couple of web gems from Lindor, and away we go. But the Mets need to be carried if they're going to win the World Series, if they're going to go storm through October like we all hope. They will need to be carried by the DeGrominator and Thor Syndergaard, of course. So DeGrom, you have to expect, you know what to expect from him at this point. However, Thor, a big question mark coming off of major surgery, and again, just not even potentially definitely going to miss the first couple months. Potentially, who knows? So major questions there at the top of the rotation with those guys, and then of course, like I mentioned, it still always comes down to the bullpen. And with Edwin as our closer, it's going to be a Diaz-ster. And that's still, unfortunately, how I feel about the Mets bullpen coming into 2020. And I guess, speaking of Edwin, though, the most hilarious part of the 2020 season, if you did, if you were paying attention, was that Diaz was dominant. Diaz crushed Coronaville unlike no one else, which is just so Edwin Diaz to do great in the season that nobody gives a shit about. But will he be back to his Edwin ways of 2019 or the Diaz dominance of 2020? Major question for the Mets. And other than that, you still got Familia and Batanzas. I mean, the three big arms in the Mets bullpen: Edwin Diaz, Jerry's Familia, and Dylan Batanzas. Enough said. All right. And then Lugo is still the quote-unquote anchor. And I like Lugo. But, I mean, come on. It's, is Lugo still the anchor of the bullpen? For fuck's sake, Trevor May, Sam McWilliams get brought in. All right, okay. They're guys that can pitch a sixth inning, but I mean, am I confident in the bullpen now because of Trevor May and Sam McWilliams? As the middle relievers behind Diaz, Familia, and Batanzas, with Lugo as like our long reliever every third day when he can pitch. It's so the bullpen is going to be a complete shit show unless we have one of the big three, and I guess Diaz really is still our biggest hope, and there was nothing we could do after the 2019 season. We brought him in. He was the real all-star of that Cano trade. It was literally one of the worst years in major relief pitching history. There was nothing they can do but bring him back. He has a couple more years left in the contract. They can't get rid of him. All they can do is totally, take out any significance in his role, which they were not able to do by getting anybody better. So compared to Familia or Batanzas, I have more confidence in Diaz, to be perfectly honest, especially after last year. So, and Lugo, the problems with him him with his, endurance and just, longevity, not being able to pitch every day and all that kind of stuff from Lugo. So Lugo's great when you get him, but he's not, the just center. He's not the linchpin of the back of your bullpen, and we're not expecting that from him. So just all in all with the bullpen, not very confident. That more confident it's going to be a nightmare than a daydream, to say the least. But I guess overall, if you want to look at the roster, I guess we did as well at James McCann behind the dish. So that's an upgraded catcher, honestly, compared to anything the Mets have seen in catcher since LaDuca, anyway. All right, I won't go as far back as Piazza, but I don't know if we've had a better catcher. But McCann could be good behind the dish. Alonso at first, McNeil at second, Lindor at shortstop. That's your team right there. Alonso, McNeil, and Lindor. Those are your three best players, your three all-stars. McNeil back home at second base where he belongs as well. Super excited to see a full season of Jeff McNeil at second base, as opposed to bouncing around the outfield every day, playing right field and in Wrigley Field. Are you fucking kidding me, Mickey Callaway? However, I digress from 2 years ago. So Alonso, McNeil, Lindor at short, Davis at third. All right. Great offense. Could it be a little bit of a butcher at third, at the hot corner? Definitely. But you like the versatility with him as well, being able to flip into the outfield where we have, Conforto, Nimmo, Dominic Smith, like I said. Then they brought in Kevin Pillar, Albert Almora, kind of help out with a little depth in the outfield, maybe some help in center field. You can't expect Nimmo to be out there. You can't expect Nimmo 160 games in center. You don't like to see Conforto in center. So the Mets, really not a lot of depth, in all honesty, in their outfield. However, a lot of versatility, especially, like I said, with Davis able to, come off, come into the outfield if, a couple of moves are made, some adjustments. So, but all in all, you love the potential offense. Could be a monster offense. I mean, Alonso, a big offense. McNeil, great hitter. Lindor, great hitter. Davis, home run threat. Conforto, home run threat, great hitter. Smith, great hitter. Nimmo sprints to first base when he walks a lot. Nimmo, a decent offensive player at best. But, all in all, should be a great offense. McCann is honestly very solid offensively. So really a very, very solid offense. Do you have some defensive concerns? You do. You don't love Davis necessarily at third at the hot corner. Nimmo really in center, like I said, every day is, that could be questionable. Dominic Smith even again in left. And Dominic Smith, still a very, very interesting situation. Like I said, again, back to versatility with Alonso. If Alonso gets hurt or anything, get Dominic Smith at first base. Dominic Smith, literally, a fan favorite, the team's favorite, fans' favorite, one of the best guys on the team, one of the easiest guys to root for on the team, one of my personal favorites on the team. However, you just don't know if he's maybe not more valuable as a great first baseman in the American League and another great starting pitcher on the Mets. You know what I mean? And again, he offers great versatility, being able to play in the outfield and at first base. The Mets have great versatility all around the team. That's one of the Mets' real highlights, are versatility. If you get creative, if you need to make a move, and you'd hate to see Dominic Smith go because you love him as a guy, you love him as a player, he's going to go be an all-star somewhere else, you know what I mean? But if the Mets, there's a little bit of a logjam situation, and there's a discrepancy between the infield and the outfield for the Mets. And, Conforto, I can count on Conforto to be an everyday major league outfielder and really help contribute to a winning team. I can't necessarily say that about Nimmo or Smith, and I definitely can't say that about Kevin Pillar or Alberto Almora. So I guess they're coming off the bench anyway. But you would like to see, if the Mets are going to win a World Series, you'd maybe like to get another outfielder in there to help out with the overall depth and general confidence. However, the everyday players for the Mets, very, very strong, very, very strong. In terms of the staff, like I mentioned, we'll get into Thor. Carrasco as well, starting on the DL. So opening day staff, we got, of course, the Jacob the DeGrominator. Last year, unfortunately, didn't win the Cy Young, so we didn't take it 3 in a row. This year, we're not looking for the 4th. However, we're looking for another Cy Young caliber year and another Jacob deGrom caliber year. Anyway, for the Jacobinator, as I'll call him. But and then you got Stroman, who missed all of 2020, of course, for COVID, just sat out the season, coming back. And then other than that, you're kind of holding your breath for the first couple of months of the season, in all honesty. You got David Peterson, Taiwan Walker, Joey Lucchesi, as I'll call him on the opening day episode, since I don't know how to pronounce it yet. But I mean, those are your first those are your 5 starters for the Mets come opening day, and with Carrasco hoping to get him back around Memorial Day, so not terribly long, although that's a couple months, and Thor a couple months after that. However, still, who knows? So really, if you have any injury concerns or setbacks, if you're telling me that there's setbacks and Thor and Carrasco don't come back, it's a total disaster. However, you're telling me that everything goes good with Thor and Carrasco, they do come back if healthy. It's a really, really good, it's a great rotation. Great rotation, of course. You have Thor, if healthy, and you have Thor back in that number 2 hole. Stroman and Carrasco are a great 3-4. Okay, is either Stroman or Carrasco really a great number 2 starter, especially in the playoffs? You could be asking for trouble there. However, Thor comes back and lengthens everybody out, adds and now all of a sudden Carrasco goes from your second starter to your 4th starter. That's a great top 4 in a short series. DeGrom, Thor, Stroman, Carrasco. So if everything breaks right with injuries, the bullpen, if everything breaks right with injuries, the starting staff should be a highlight. However, like we said, we're on thin ice and could very, very well use another starter. Very, very well use, even just in general depth, especially with Major League Baseball this day, the shorter innings, it's a 6-man rotation. It's good to have a good 6 starters on your 40-man roster. With injuries, with everything, you need 6 starters going into the season at least, and right now the Mets have 2 that you can count on. So definitely flirting with disaster for the Mets, especially until Carrasco comes back with the starting staff. And then, of course, like I mentioned, we always fuck it up in the end anyway, so what does it really matter? And with Edwin the Diaster as our opening day closer, it's going to be trouble. Diaz, Familia, Betances, like I mentioned, you still got Lugo, Gesellman potentially in those kind of swing roles. They did bring in Trevor May, who's been a decent middle reliever in Minnesota. That's where Jeremy Hefner, now Mets, ex-Met superstar Jeremy Hefner, who's now, of course, the Mets pitching coach, knows Trevor May from Minnesota, really high on him from Minnesota, so that's Hefner's guy, is Trevor May. Sam McWilliams has a big potential, a big prospect, kind of, a big free agent contract without ever playing in the majors, so big potential from Sam McWilliams. A great name as well from Sam McWilliams, Jacob Barnes, Stephen Tarpley, Miguel Castro, potential faces to catch lightning in a bottle with, but all in all, the bullpen is, like I said, a potential nightmare, especially at the back end. Diaz, Familia, Betances, you're going to need one of those guys. You're going to need one of those guys to really, really step up and, be able to be the guy that you can count on as, at least theoretically, your everyday closer. Because right now there's one of those guys you have to, I guess, by default, like I said, give it to Diaz, but you can't, you can't honestly, in good faith, go into the season right now until the Diaz gets hot. You can't go into the season with thinking of him as a strong closer for a World Series caliber team.
WEFUNK. We funk.